I'd assault them brutally, viciously. I'd go to jail. But I'd rather go to jail than be compared to Irving from Resident Evil 5.
Professor Purple.
Hello everyone, Professor Purple here, back with another video where today I'm going to be doing another tier list because I have enjoyed the last two that I've done, and I'd definitely like to do some more. I believe the last one I did was the Resident Evil game tier list, where I ranked all the games. And so, in this one, I will be ranking a bunch of the characters. This isn't every character, I just kind of found like one random tier list that had a bunch of characters in it, so... as you can see, I've got my S rank purple because, well, in my opinion, the best color. And then, little spoiler there, for the bottom tier, but, let's, just go ahead and get started. We're starting with Jill, which I'm just gonna go ahead and put an S rank. Jill is actually my personal favorite Resident Evil, protagonist. I think it is a damn shame she hasn't been a playable main character since Resident Evil 3, technically. I know she was in like both of the DLCs for Resident Evil 5, but since that's DLC, I don't count it as her being like a playable main character in the story of the game. So, I think, yeah, the only... I guess Revelations as well. Because, I mean, I guess that is still, like, you know... canon story entry, even if it's not like a numbered entry, but yeah, so I guess it's been since Revelation, since she's been like a main playable character, if you don't include Resident Evil 3 Remake as a new entry, since that's not like a new, you know, like a new story, it's just a remake. Anyway, moving on then, with Chris, I can't really put Chris any lower than S either. I mean, like, honestly, like, the core four main characters are all going to be S rank, so, you know, it's Chris, you know, he's been one of the most involved main characters in the series since the first game, other than, like, Leon, but, I mean, of course, Leon wasn't involved since the first game, so, as Chris has a little edge there, even if I personally like Leon a little better. Sheva, yeah, that's a strong A character. Amazing character. She just hasn't, you know, she's only been in the one game, so I can't really put her any higher than A. She really needs another game as well. I know a lot of people would like to see, like, Sheva, Carlos, Billy, myself included. I think all three of them need to come back in a game sooner or later. Okay, and then Barry Burton. That he's got some of my favorite dialogue throughout all, like, he's only been in 2 mainline games, because I'm not counting Resident Evil Gaiden as part of the main line with our green oozing Leon at the end there. I mean, yeah, you know, Jill Sandwich, Master of Unlocking. Fucking Barry Burton's the GOAT. Like, he's got some of the best lines. If they remake Resident Evil 1 again, which I think they should, so that the remake universe does have like an established Spencer Mansion background for Jill and Chris before they remake 5. If they don't have those lines in the game, like, that's one of the biggest sins of the 2002 remake. I love the 2002 remake. It's wonderful. But changing the Jill Sandwich line was just an absolute sin. So if they remake the game, they've got to put it back in. If RE4 can have the bingo line, let RE1 have the Jill Sandwich line. Enough said. Rebecca Chambers, so that's going to be between a B and an A. I think I'm going to go B. I know she's been getting a lot more popularity, like, recently. And she is a great character. Resident Evil 0 is like the one game that I never want to, like, whenever I'm playing the games, that's like the one that I never want to go back to. And it's not Rebecca's fault, but that does hinder, like, how much I enjoy the character. I, like, you know, because most of the exposure I get to Rebecca is from Resident Evil 1 and the Resident Evil 1 remake, which aren't like she's not as good in those games as she is in RE0. So just on a personal level, I can't really put her higher than a B. I did like her in Vendetta and Death Island, like the CGI movies. Especially Vendetta, she had like a very core part of that film. Um, but yeah, somebody who'd probably rank Rebecca a lot higher than I did, Albert Wesker. There's no other place on this tier list for him. Like one of the best villains in gaming, in my opinion. I absolutely love Wesker in Resident Evil 5, especially. I think just like the amount of aura that this guy has is unmatched in the Resident Evil games, except for maybe by one person. That person being Leon Kennedy, another S tier character. Um, my favorite games in the Resident Evil series mostly tie into the ones that Leon's in. And you know, it's for a reason. Leon is just incredible. I know that this isn't exactly a hot take. Resident Evil 4 is one of my favorite games in the series. Resident Evil Requiem, banger of a game, absolutely just incredible, and I think every voice actor that has done Leon has done an incredible job as Leon. Um, and you know, I, I mean, if you've watched my last video, I played a fucking Leon Kennedy dating simulator because it's Leon fucking Kennedy. Um, Second favorite character in the whole series, right behind Jill. So I'll actually go ahead and put him behind Jill in the ranking. Then Claire, another, I yeah, S tier. She also has not been in a lot of games. Pat, like what's the last mainline game she was in? I mean, the only numbered entry she was in was 2. She was in Revelations 2 and Code Veronica, of course, but is that it? Are those like the only mainline games she's been in? Just those 3? Yeah, yeah. No, it's just Resident Evil 2, Code Veronica, and Revelations 2. So, yeah, Claire needs some more games there. Uh, I guess Jill's also. Well, no, because Jill was also in 5. I was gonna say Jill's also only been in 3 because there's 1, 3, and Revelations, but Jill was also in 5. Even if she wasn't playable, Claire doesn't even have the benefit of having been like a background character in another one of the games. So, yeah, Claire's another one that needs more screen time. Ada. Now, if I were to do this tier list last year, hell, maybe even like a few months ago, she would have been S. But I'm gonna have to go with like either A or B. I'll go A because I really do like Separate Ways, and I just feel like most of the time, Ada, like she's obviously got that femme fatale, like double agent. You never know where she aligns, which a lot of people say make her super interesting. For me, personally, I actually kind of find that to be very uninteresting. Um, because it's just like every time with Ada, it's like, oh yeah, so she's gonna double cross me, or she's gonna, like, and if she doesn't double cross me, it's just because it's her own self interest. So it's like she's not the most interesting character just because she's just like always doing whatever benefits her the most, and yeah, sometimes that can lead to like some plot twists or shenanigans or whatnot. I just personally think like I don't know. She's overrated in my opinion. Still a great character. Like there's nothing wrong with the Wong. I I can't I can't believe I just said that. But I do think she's a little overrated. I will say though, I absolutely don't agree with any of the hate she got for the RE4 remake or like the Separate Ways. I personally think that Resident Evil 4 remake's version of Separate Ways was far better than the original. I like both, but the original Separate Way or like the remake Separate Ways was fantastic, and I I don't agree with any of the people who were giving the voice actress hate for the performance. I especially don't agree with the people who are threatening her. I don't agree with that at all. Like, for any roles, I think if you don't like a performance in a character and you start threatening the actor or actress for it, you're just a piece of shit and you can go fuck off. Um, Regardless of that, though, I don't think she deserved the hate at all. I think it was it was a perfectly fine performance. Nothing like too spectacular, but also nothing worthy of the ire of 100 rebel Resident Evil fans. Um, Marvin, I was gonna go a strong A tier, um, because for like a lot of these characters, I'm trying to keep both the original and the remake in mind, and that hasn't really come up as an issue yet, because most of the characters so far that we've done are pretty similar for both remake and original. Marvin is stark contrast, where I think, like, if I were to go just based on the OG, I'd probably have to put him in like a C. If I were to go just based on remake, I'd probably put him S tier, because I think Marvin in the remake's amazing. So I'll settle for putting him in A tier. Like, in the OG RE2, he basically gave you a little bit of exposition and then just like died. It was a cool transformation scene, but he didn't do much. In the Resident Evil 2 remake, this guy's just fucking amazing. I especially think, like, in RE3 remake, seeing how the reason that he died was because, like, he wanted to be too trusting towards Brad because Brad said sorry. Um, I think that was a really cool way to give a little bit of like layers to him, especially going back to RE2 remake, and what he says to Leon is like, if you shoot one of those things, or if you see one of those things, don't hesitate, just fucking shoot it or run. And then that scene with Brad gives a lot more meaning to that scene in RE2. So I think overall, Marvin was just really well done in the remakes, and especially like in the remake universe with Leon. Both Resident Evil 4 remake and Resident Evil Requiem both have those ties back to Marvin. Like in RE4, the knife, it's the same one that Marvin gave him, and then in Requiem, like in throughout the whole RPD segment, like Marvin's weighing heavily on his mind. Oh, and Marvin's daughter leaving the notes behind, that was actually like that got me. Like I was starting to tear up reading some of those. I'm like, I think that was really emotional. Among some other things in Requiem, again, amazing game. Sherry, that's tough. Because I could definitely see putting her in S tier. Yeah. So far, all of these characters are in the top of the tier. We've got some banger characters at in the front here. Yeah, I'm gonna say S. Um, RE6 is nowhere near my favorite game. Like, I don't hate it as much as a lot of people do, but at the same time, I don't like. It's not like, it's definitely not in like the upper half of the games I enjoy. What I will say though, what I will say is Jake and Sherry's campaign is, and I know this is a very unpopular opinion for RE6, is my favorite in RE6. I really like Jake and Sherry's story. Both of them being like, the children of just these evil people that have ruined so many lives, and I think I think Sherry, becoming like an agent and whatnot after the stuff she went through makes sense. Um, and I really liked especially just like Sherry and Jake's chemistry in RE6. Beyond that, in like Resident Evil 2, like Resident Evil 2 doesn't inform this decision a whole lot because like I'm neither here or there on Cherry and RE2. It's like she's a kid that follows you around a little bit. There's not much to her, and in Requiem she doesn't like have a whole lot of screen time, but I did like a lot of her dialogue and interactions with Leon in Requiem. I do still really have to wonder like where Hunnigan is in Requiem. She's just kind of like nowhere to be seen there, so that's kind of odd for me. It's like, where is she? No one knows. Maybe she's on vacation. Anyway, moving on now. Sherry's mom, Annette. I'll put her C tier. She's a bad mom. Let's just get that straight. She's a bad mom. Like, yeah, we kind of see her like being kind of regretful before she dies, but like, she's still a bad mom, bad person. She a lot of people died because of her. Even if she tried making amends, I feel like it was too little, too late, and she's pretty damn content to just like let her child die if Claire wasn't there. Like, so C tier. William Birkin, I'll put B. He is an incredible boss, an incredible presence in Resident Evil 2. I think he's definitely like not one of the more memorable villains throughout this. Actually, you know what? Let me take that back. He's definitely one of the more memorable villains, I think. But I think that's more so due to him being the main villain of one of like the most well-known games, rather than anything like specifically he does. But he's still an incredible villain. I think not like very redeemable. Like, I see some people saying that like had he not been transformed, he could have been a redeemable villain. The fuck are they talking about? No, this dude's done some heinous shit. He's worked with some heinous people. He's killed people before becoming a monster. Resident Evil 0. Him and Wesker were very content to fuck James Marcus up, and he's definitely not just evil because of the G serum, like some people are saying. I don't know where that came from. It's definitely wrong. I will now move on to Mr. X. That's going to be an S tier. Maybe an A tier, because Resident Evil, the original's Mr. X isn't too impressive. It's still like a really cool. There's a really cool like addition with the B scenario, where like you're definitely not expecting it because he's just not in the first scenario at all, and then all of a sudden he's bursting through the walls and chasing you down. Not much of a stalker in the OG, but then with RE2 remake, he gives Nemesis a run for his money. OG Nemesis, not remake Nemesis. I mean, he definitely gives remake Nemesis a run for his money, but that's just because remake Nemesis is, well, not at all threatening. But I digress. Yeah, so Mr. X, I think of the remake, especially for anybody who's played the original Resident Evil 2 beforehand and is not expecting Mr. X to be part of the main, like part of the first scenario at all, or what its first run in the remakes. When they're not expecting that at all, that's terrifying. The helicopter, I think, is a really good introduction to the character, and just hearing his footsteps around the RPD is terrifying, I think. Especially like the music. As much as I love the X Gonna Give It To You mod, I think the music, if you're not using that mod, is very like you hear it and it starts the adrenaline pumping and it's like, ah, shit, I gotta get out of here like yesterday. So remake Mr. X, incredible. OG Mr. X, still really decent. So compromise and give him A tier. Carlos. Now, if this were OG Carlos solely, I'd probably put him in a D. But remake Carlos is so likable. I he's likable enough to get an S tier. No, fuck it. Yeah, I'm putting him S tier. Like original Carlos be damned. Carlos in the RE3 remake is so likable. Um, I you know I think that he carries the remake. Now I've said this before. I like I might go as far as to say I love the Resident Evil 3 remake, not as a remake, but as a game. I think there's a huge difference, at least to me, in terms of something being a good game and a good adaptation. Um, like, and that goes for a lot of things beyond games. I think the first Percy Jackson movie, great movie, terrible adaptation of the books. Like if you're comparing it to the books, terrible as its own thing, wonderful. Same with like The Boys, terrible adaptation of the comics, wonderful show. Even though the comics are trash, from what I hear, I actually haven't read the comics, but I should do that. My roommate's got them, and he's offered to let me read them. I just haven't done it, so I should do that at some point. But from what I hear, it's a terrible adaptation, but I love the show. I think it's a great show. Um, Now I'm talking about The Boys. God, ADHD. Anyway, I think there's a huge difference between adaptation and, something being a good adaptation and something just being good. Resident Evil 3 Remake, it's a great game, even if it's a terrible adaptation. Um, and I'm realizing now that I'm talking about Carlos and not Resident Evil 3 as a whole. Carlos is great. His dialogue, really funny. It's delivered well. The only complaint I can make about Carlos, is that every time I hear him speaking, I can only think of well, not only, but most of the times I hear him speaking, I think of Chris from Village, just because the voices are so similar, and I know that obviously it's because they're played by the same person, but it's just there's not enough distinction between the voices where I can't just close my eyes when Carlos is speaking and imagine Chris. Even though the kind of dialogue's very different, a lot of the stuff Carlos says, I don't exactly imagine Chris would say. Vice versa. Chris, I feel like when it comes down to it, Carlos is if Leon's personality was in Chris's body. That's kind of how I picture Carlos. It's a mix of some of the great things about Leon and some of the great things about Chris, which is I think why it works so well. And so that's why he's got an S rank, even though his original iteration is just mid. Nemesis as well, I'm gonna give an S tier, because even though I do think the RE3 remake Nemesis is nowhere near as threatening as the OG, I still love Nemesis and how he's depicted in RE3. The only difference is that whereas in the original he's a very menacing presence and a very threatening force throughout the whole game, and he's a lot more unpredictable. And that's in the gameplay rather than in the cutscenes. With remake Nemesis, it's the opposite, where he is still that menacing presence, he is still that threatening force, just mostly in cutscenes and scripted areas rather than gameplay. He's not as random, he's very predictable because he just does kind of the same stuff outside of one or two segments where he stalks you. However, him being restricted as a stalker, I don't think takes away from him being a really cool, scary, badass character. Um, so I feel very confident putting him in S tier. And now we're gonna get to some of the more interesting characters. Steve. Ooh, where do I put Steve? I can tell you what, he's not going here, 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 or here. He's going in one of these tiers. Is he as bad as Irving? I'll go D tier. And my reasoning is, yes, he's an incredibly annoying character. He does some stupid shit. And he's a creep. But he's 17 years old. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of forget or miss when they're trashing Steve. I'll trash Steve for all the same stuff. But I also, have to like remember he is a kid. And he's also been through some traumatic shit. His mother's been killed. Him and his dad have been in prison. He watched his dad turn into a zombie and had to shoot his own father to save some hot chick he's never met before. And then, so it's like, yeah, he's been through some shit. He's 17. He's gonna be an annoying little fuck. But he still is an annoying little fuck. And for that matter, for that reason, D tier. Alfred. That's an... I think he's a great villain. But he's also very annoying. I'm gonna put him C. He's a really fucking dark, twisted fuck. He's got a lot of problems, a lot of issues. And I know that they don't really have this as like a canon thing in the original Code Veronica, at least to my knowledge, but I do believe the original plan was for them to be Nazis, which makes him a lot worse. I'm also realizing that I don't think they have Alexia in here. Oh wait, do they really have Alfred but not Alexia? Huh. Yeah, they don't have Alexia. Okay, well, I guess that means that Alfred's gonna be like the only villain representation we have from Code Veronica, other than Wesker. But Code Veronica's like the last thing that I, in my mind when I'm ranking Wesker. So yeah, I'm gonna put him C. I think his laugh alone puts him in C tier. I gotta say though, when they do Code Veronica, when they remake Code Veronica, they better cast someone who's willing to do that laugh. Like, dog shit laugh, terrible laugh, but they better keep it. They've got to. Moving on, Nikolai. I really like Nikolai, but I think that's bias, and I don't know why I'm biased towards him. And it's just because I really like Nikolai, but at the same time, I know that he's not a good character. Because, like, his motivation as a villain is very shit. It's pretty much, money. Which, yeah, it's a standard villain motivator, but, like, he also has a lot of contradictory lines and dialogue in, like, he's like, there's a price for everything, even letting the world burn. And then, like, 5 minutes later, he's like, you can't put a price on human life. So it's like, very contradictory. Like he's killing a lot of people for money, and then he's like, human lives aren't worth money. They're priceless. Unless it's anybody's life that's not mine. So he's very, I think, shallow villain, which isn't a bad thing. Like having a shallow villain can be, it's whatever as long as there's other villains to balance it out. It's just that he's the only human villain in RE3. And so Nemesis, he's not like a super well written, villain that's got a lot of layers to him. He's a killing machine. And so when we've got the only other villain also not being a well written villain with layers, it's like, so I'll put him C tier because I like him. I just don't know why I like him, because like all logic points me to no, I shouldn't like him, but I like him as a villain, so C tier. Billy Coen, A tier. No, I can't put him higher than Rebecca. I'll go B tier. Okay. I think Billy Coen's another character that definitely needs to return, and then maybe he could be higher up on the list. I think I really like the kind of gruffness he's got, and something going on my chest today. I think his story with like refusing refusing immoral orders, and then that kind of leading to him being framed for a lot of murders. That's unfortunately not all too hard to believe. But also, I think it's a great, a great motivator, and like I can see why he hasn't come back because of that. Like but it would still be nice to see him return. So, yeah, B tier. Ashley. Now I'm gonna put her in A tier, and I know this is specifically gonna be one that's gonna is gonna be a very controversial. And prepare to be offended, because I'm probably about to offend a lot of people. I think the people who complain about Ashley being unmanageable in the original Resident Evil 4 are pussies. Trash gamers. She is not. Like I get it, yeah. Her having a health bar is annoying, but she is not that hard to manage in the original game. All you have to do, literally all you have to do, is get her, like, away from the fight and tell her to stay put. Most of the enemies will gun for you rather than her. And if it gets to a point where they go after her, you shoot them once and they fucking fall over and drop her, and she's fine. I don't get why people are always, like, constantly, "Ah, no, Ashley gets me killed every 2 seconds." She doesn't, unless you're a trash gamer. Anyway, yeah, her voice is a little annoying, but like that's whatever. And then remake Ashley, the voice is a lot better. And I don't think that that's like a hit against the voice actress in the original game. She was probably directed to sound a little bit more annoying and whatnot. And then, for remake Ashley, the voice is a lot better. I will say, I actually find Ashley more annoying in terms of gameplay in the remake. Because with the original, you can have Ashley wait wherever, and she'll just stay there. You can even have her hide a lot more. There's a lot more places where you can have Ashley hide in the original compared to the remake. With the remake, the tight and loose commands, other than also just sounding really promiscuous, it's like, even in the loose formation, she's still moving actively, and that causes her to move into enemies a lot more. Whereas, like, with the original one, she will just stay put and not move into enemies. So it's like, she's actually, I think, on the gameplay side, more annoying in the remake. So I will never understand why people say that like original Ashley is a detriment to the gameplay. Because I don't think she's a detriment to the gameplay in either game. Like, even though as I said, I think she's more annoying in the remake for like the gameplay side of it. It's still not that much that like I rarely ever die to Ashley. I think, and as I said, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people right now are screaming at me or on their keyboards about to write an angry comment, but I think the people complaining about Ashley just like need to get better at the game. Sorry. Um. Anyway, now that I have finished making a lot of you angry, um, Luis, my sweet sweet baby Luis, S tier. This is my favorite side character in the entire, in the entire series. Luis is just fucking goated. Um, I think he kind of has that redemption that Annette failed to have, where like he was an Umbrella scientist and he was actually able to redeem himself, unlike Annette Birkin. Um, and not just an Umbrella scientist, but also with Los Illuminados. I do think remake Luis's death was a lot better. Um, and I like Luis's portrayal in both. Um, I think like the OG Luis definitely had a lot more. Um, uh, I don't know. I don't, words. I don't quite know what to call it, but he was definitely a little bit more extreme in a sense. Um, with some of his lines, but I do think both are great. It's just his death in the remake, I think, serves a much better purpose and also is a lot more impactful. Even to Ashley, like in the OG, in the OG game, Ashley says nothing about the death. You can lead her to Luis's body. She can stand over it, and she will just be unaffected. And then in the remake, you can't even bring her to Luis's body, and she'll still actually say something about it. So, um, maybe she's less offended, since he didn't have the ballistics line in the remake. Hunnigan, A tier. Um, where would Luween? Where would Leon be without Hunnigan? Unless we're talking about Requiem and he has Sherry instead. I think Hunnigan is another one of those just like goated characters that doesn't have a whole lot of screen time. Like we don't get a whole lot of Hunnigan outside of RE4. I think what in RE6 we see her face maybe 2 times, and then the rest of her presence is just dialogue. At least with like RE4, every time we're speaking to Hunnigan in both the original and the remake, we kind of we get to see her for a bit. I could I need to rewatch some of the CGI films, but I only actually remember her being in one of them. I can't remember which one. The names escape me for those ones. I know it was the one that had the guy that could control the liquors. I think it was the first one. The one that kind of softly made it canon that Leon and Ada fucked. Anyway, yeah. So Hunnigan, great character. Sadler. I'm really inclined to put him higher up on the list because he's the villain in my favorite game. But I do think that that's probably a little biased, so I'm gonna put him in B. Like, great villain. He had, I think, one of the best plans out of a villain in the series. Gosh, my mustache just keeps. Anyway, he had one of the better plans, I think, in the series. It was really well thought, well put together. Honestly, he would have won if it weren't for Leon. Like, he just got really unlucky that Leon S. Kennedy, S standing for Suck These Nuts Sadler, and he just got really unlucky that the one guy that could definitely stop him was the guy that stopped him. So yeah, I think he's one of the villains that definitely would have won had his plan worked. I guess that's probably just more bias speaking. I feel like most of the villains would have won if their plan hadn't worked. I think that argument's actually just stupid now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more. Like, yeah, if Chris wasn't there, Wesker would have won. If if Barry and Claire weren't there, Alex would have won. If Ethan wasn't there, Miranda would have. That was a stupid argument on my. I'm gonna go ahead and apologize for that. Oh yeah, if the main character wasn't there, the villain would have won. That's like every single fucking game out there. So that was a bad argument. I'm gonna keep Sadler at B, but I just want to acknowledge that my brain wasn't working when I said that, and I apologize. I was a stupid fucking take. Mendez. I'm gonna put him C. In my mind, he's just kind of forgettable. Like he's pretty much a less scary Mr. X. I feel like he's like I definitely think he was very much inspired by Mr. X. Like when they're making RE4, like his design, it's so like minus the beard, it is so similar that I just don't see a part in which like they weren't thinking of Mr. X when they made this character. And in my mind, he's just nowhere near as scary as Mr. X because, one, he's not really a stalker enemy at all, which that's not like a count against him. Like there are plenty of stalker enemies in the Resident Evil games, so we don't need like a ton more. I love them. I'm not gonna like, I'm not gonna say that we don't need more of them. I would love more of them. I think that they're amazing, but there's plenty of them, so I'm not gonna complain if we don't have more. But with Mendez, another thing that I think really counts against him in terms of scariness factor is his goofy fucking voice in the original. Where, like, yeah, there are some characters that have had more annoying voices throughout the games. But for, like, a big dude that resembles Mr. X, and he talks like this, it's just, it's hard to be scared of a guy when he's like, oh, your blood has accepted the gift. And, in the remake, his voice is a lot different. But, he's still, like, the same amount of, like, he just kind of feels inspired by Mr. X and he doesn't do a whole lot. Like, after you move on from the village section, you don't really think about Mendez again, He just never crosses your mind again. This next one, Salazar, boy, this is going to be another controversial one. I'm going to put him in B, because everything that I said about Mendez, in terms of like it's hard to be scared of him, is true. Except that at least with Salazar, he's not really trying to be scary. And with Salazar, he's really entertaining. Like, yeah, he's annoying as fuck. He's a little shit. But I feel the same way towards Salazar as I do about like the Leprechaun. Not in every Leprechaun, but in some of the Leprechaun movies, shit. But in most of the Leprechaun movies, it's like Yeah, he sucks. He's a piece of shit, but he's so entertaining with it. And Salazar especially, he's got some just like really great banter with Leon. Like some of the calls that they have in the original, especially like I've sent my right hand to dispose of you. Your right hand comes off. Yeah, I think that it's really entertaining. And mainly for this is one of those characters where I like the original version a lot better than the remake. I still, I think remake Salazar is, he's decent enough, but like OG Salazar just has a place in my heart. I don't think he's going to be leaving anytime soon, and I really appreciate how he like single-handedly is able to make the game do a hard turn from like an action survival horror, or not really, from like an action horror to like a fucking Scooby Doo movie with just some of his goofiness. And so for that reason, he's going to be B tier. Um, Krauser will also go B tier. He is. I think he's another great. Resident Evil has some damn great villains, some damn great characters, as you can just like see from, how top heavy this chart is. Krauser, I think, could have been better, especially in the remake, in very specific ways. And the biggest thing is the change in motivation with the remake. Don't get me wrong. I like Krauser in the remake, especially his bosses. I think I enjoy a lot more in the remake just because of like the improved parry system and knife combat. But having him just kind of be like, the government wronged me, so I'm gonna go join the Spanish cult and get power. It's a lot less interesting to me than in the original, especially because in the remake universe, it's implied that, or I don't actually think it's implied. I think it's just kind of like outright said that Leon wasn't part of Operation Javier. And that's wild to me because in the original, Leon very much was part of Operation Javier, and that is like the driving force behind the tension between the two, where like we have this backstory with Leon and Krauser where where they were allies and they had been through all of this stuff together, and then that makes their fight a lot more like emotionally driven and cathartic, whereas in the remake he just trained Leon. Like there wasn't anything beyond that. They didn't do Operation Javier together. And then there's also a heel turn with that statement where there is still an emotionally charged reason for this, and that is Krauser being responsible for Luis's death in the remake. So I think the reason I think Krauser could have been better is that you could have done both. I really like the change they made where Krauser killed Luis instead of Sadler. It made the Krauser fight so much more cathartic because Luis is a character that I really love. So, having Krauser kill him instantly made me hate Krauser a little bit more. But in terms of Leon, I feel like having that background with Operation Javier and Krauser killing Luis, that could have made it a lot more, a lot more emotionally charged for Leon. Because now you have, this person that, that what used to be an ally during a very difficult mission that you did, and he just killed your, a new ally of yours that you have, I'd say grown attached to, but honestly, Leon doesn't really take to Luis as much as I mean, up until that elevator ride, like 2 seconds before Luis died, Leon was still just kind of like super dismissive towards him. But um, yeah, so I think having Luis, Krauser both kill Luis and still have that Operation Javier backstory could have done wonders. I also think Krauser was a little bit more interesting when he wasn't just like, you know, join a random Spanish cult and sorry I'm fidgeting so much. I've got a new chair and it's not entirely comfortable. I'm gonna have to do something about that. But um, instead of the whole I'll just go join this random Spanish cult and get power from that. I think it was interesting when he was still working with Wesker and he's still kind of like that double agent thing. I know that I was kind of dissing the whole double agent thing with Ada earlier, but you know, I think I think the double agent thing works better with villains rather than like anti-heroes, and that's very much where I see Ada on the on the chart as an anti-hero. Excel is a C. Excel is a D. She doesn't do much. She's pretty much just a simp for Wesker, which like I can't I can't complain about that because like we're all Wesker simps at heart, but she just she I feel like you take Estella out of the game, it would be the exact same game. I feel like she's really only there for the Tricell connection that wasn't really needed. Like we could have just said that Wesker's with Tricell now. Or like the Wesker's had a Tricell now. I mean it's Wesker. He could believably move up the ranks that fast. So I feel like she wasn't too necessary. Fine character, but But now Irving. This fucking piece of shit. This annoying little fucker. This guy is the reason that I skip cutscenes when I replay the Resident Evil games. Because then I only have to hear this fucker during his boss fight. Because, oh my fucking god, is he just the most annoying thing in this entire fucking game series. It's not easy to get an operation like this running. Fuck. Oh, use is gonna make me look bad! God, this guy's annoying. Fuck this guy. He is easily the most annoying Resident Evil character in my opinion. I got really erratic there for a second. Irving sucks. He does. It's I once saw a Resident Evil 5 fan cast, and I can't even remember who was like fan cast as Irving. I can just remember feeling sorry for them. That anybody on this planet would look at an actor and say, "Yeah, he would be a good fit for Irving." I would be so insulted. If somebody on the street randomly just like pointed at me and said, "Hey, you'd make a wonderful Irving in Resident Evil 5." I'd assault them. I'd assault them brutally, viciously. I'd go to jail. But I'd rather go to jail than be compared to Irving from Resident Evil 5. Okay, moving on. Helena. Is it Helena? Is it Helena? No, it's Helena, I think. I don't know. I'm just gonna say it's Helena and hope that that's right. I'll go B. She was a fine character. I feel like some of her plot was just kind of like, eh. But you know, um, I can't, like I can't like there's nothing I can think of that would make me not like her. Like there's not like a, you know, like yeah, I guess she did kind of lead to the president's death, but like at the same time she was, she was you know, emotionally manipulated by a fucking much worse character. So I can't really hold that against her too much. Um, yeah. So um, and I also romanced her in Dispatch. So okay, Pierce. That is. It took a while for that to go. Whatever. Pierce is a S tier. Easily one of the best characters that RE6 introduced. Um, with okay, sorry. Yeah, I I was I was thinking of Jake because like those are the top two RE6 characters for me that like they introduced, and most of this it's been messing me up because like it's mostly sticking to game order, but then sometimes it's not. So like it was just Helena and Piers, and then we got Carla, Derek, we got all the RE6 characters over here, and then Jake's at the very fucking end for some reason. Moving on. Yeah, Piers, he got done dirty. Definitely a huge setup for like a Chris Redfield successor, and then they go and kill him. And you know what? Somebody must have been cutting an onion when I was playing this game the first time because like boy, was where my eyes were getting wet. And must have been an onion because like I swear I wasn't crying because Piers died. I wasn't. Okay, Carla. Ass. Just fucking ass. I really don't think RE6 had any good villains. Carla, just ass. I think like the whole thing with them um gunning after Ada and whatnot. What I find funny is there are scenes where like they're going after Carla and Carla escapes, and then they see Ada later and they think Ada's Carla. They're wearing completely different outfits. Also, for whatever reason, Carla's been wearing that same exact fucking outfit for years, I guess, because she's wearing the same thing when they meet her initially, uh, like months before the fucking the night that most of the game had. So it's like I don't know why she's wearing that same outfit for so long. And I also don't know why Chris can't clearly see that the person that just walked out of one door that looks like Ada and this one person that walked in the other door that looks like Ada are wearing two completely completely different outfits. Like, she didn't have time to change that fast, but I digress. Derek Simmons, another ass villain. This guy, he may be a trash villain, but you know what? He is a great advertisement for resilience. Because this motherfucker just keeps coming back. Like, every time that you think this fucker's down, he comes back for another session of just clapping his ass. Not in a sexual manner. I mean, like, just fucking unloading every single piece of fucking ammo that you've got into this fucker. And he's just like, I guess I want some more. Ethan Winters. That's gonna go A tier. Now, he has, I think, a great story. RE7 and RE8. RE7, I I think that's the one I've played the least, other than RE0. And most of that's just kind of derived from it's kind of a slog to replay. Um, but Village is, I think, one of the ones I've replayed more than a lot of the others. And I think the only thing I could go against Ethan for is some of his cringy dialogue. But I don't think that it's really as cringy as some people think it is. Because, like, you gotta remember, this is Resident Evil. It's never exactly been, like, top tier in dialogue writing. This is the series that, gave us just some of the best lines in gaming, "Huh, you were almost a Jill sandwich." Um, so, like, cringy dialogue is not something I would ever hold against a Resident Evil character. Um, you know what? Fuck it. No, he's going S tier. This guy did so much, and like, yeah, most of what he did, most of what he did in both games, he was already dead for, but he still did it. Um, I think it's one thing to be like I guess, super powered individual and do things. It's another thing to be a super powered individual and not know you're a super powered individual and do it. As far as he was aware, he was just a normal human, untrained, normal human, just trying to save his wife. And yeah, we know, yeah, he wasn't actually a normal human for most of that game. He was a molded. He didn't know that though. Um. So yeah, and even in even in Resident Evil Village, yeah, he got some more training. He was still a normal dude though, and he still fought giant vampire ladies and fish monsters and shit. So um, he's a lot braver than most. I'd say. I feel like a lot of people would do a lot of stuff for their family. I can maybe count on a few fingers how many people I know that would fight a giant vampire lady that turns into a dragon for their family and win. So yeah, Ethan, he's kind of a goat. Now, um, this next one is dedicated to my roommate because my roommate hates me for this take. And so I want you to look me in the eyes as I say this, okay? Um, Mia Winters. Irving tier. Because Mia fucking sucks. She does. Like, anybody who likes Mia, get out of here. What are you doing? She sucks. I'm actually gonna put her in D tier. I only put her in Irving tier just to peeve off my roommate. She's let's go to Resident Evil 7, right? What does she do in that game? She's a fucking terrorist. She works for a terrorist organization developing a terrorist weapon. She lies to Ethan, and then what? She's just forgiven? Yeah, Helena was forgiven for killing the president, but she was forced into it. She didn't really have a choice when it came to killing the president. Mia was just of her own volition, of her own accord. She's like, hey, I'm gonna be a terrorist. And Chris is like, yeah, it's fine. We'll put you into protective custody with your husband. And then in Village, right? Mia knows that Ethan is made of mold. Doesn't think it important to tell anybody that knowledge could be beneficial to. Like, yeah, you can give me the whole, oh, she was just trying to protect her husband. Fuck that. Fuck that. They were so worried that their daughter was going to have mold, some sort of mold infection or whatnot. They were so worried about that. But she couldn't just be like, oh, hey, warning, you're made of mold. Yeah. The fuck? And you know what? When I first played Resident Evil Village, I'll tell you what, I smiled when Mia got shot down. When Chris was putting all those bullets in her, everybody else was like, oh my god, Chris, what are you doing? I was like, Chris, yeah, fuck yeah. And when I found out that wasn't actually Mia, Chris went down in my ranking a bit. I was like, damn it, you know what? You could have had something. This is why Leon's my favorite character. At the time, Leon was my favorite character. Now it's Jill, but at the time, Leon was. Anyway, that's why Chris wasn't my favorite character. Because you know what? You could have killed Mia, but you didn't. That actually had nothing to do with it, but I made that up. I just misinformation for dramatic effect. Come on, you're on the internet. What's new about that? I don't like Mia. That's what I've got to say there. Jack Baker, fucking A tier. God, Jack takes what makes all the other stalker enemies terrifying, and made it worse because of the way he taunts you. It's one thing for Mr. X to just be silently stomping up towards you, and it's another one for, some old hillbilly dude with a giant pair of garden shears to be like, come here, boy, I'm gonna get ya! So yeah, Jack, also another very resilient character, because even beyond just, like, the main story of RE7, he still keeps coming back for more in the End of Zoe DLC. Marguerite Baker... I'm gonna go B. She's also a very well done villain. Very disgusting. Very gross, icky, ew, no thank you. And very unhinged and maniacal. Very, very delightfully evil. I think, that's one of the things RE7 did really well was villains, because all of the villains were terrifying. Lucas Baker, I'm gonna put him next to his mama. I think the one thing with, like, Lucas Baker that definitely sets him apart from the rest of the villains in RE7 is that he was evil before becoming infected. He just, like, straight up fucking murdered a kid in his attic, and that was before Evelyn was ever even fucking boarding a ship to go to, wherever the fuck they were going. I can't remember. So yeah, he was evil long before the rest of his family joined him, and that evil was unprompted. It wasn't even the result of any sort of infectious thing. He was just a bad seed. Of course, then with the infection, that made it a lot worse. I really liked 21, the DLC, and Resident Evil 7 is the Blackjack DLC, where Lucas Baker is forcing Clancy Jarvis to do Blackjack. I think he was very delightful in that, especially in, I think it was like the third round, where Hoffman is presumed dead and he starts puppeteering Hoffman's body. I also feel like Hoffman might be a reference to Saw, because Lucas Baker's definitely a Jigsaw type villain, and so having a character in one of the traps named Hoffman seems like a very deliberate thing there. Moving on to now, this is actually where it gets pretty interesting, because I think out of all of those amazing villains I said RE7 has, the main villain is actually the worst one. Like, yeah, I guess, it's tragic. A little girl grows up way too fast, and doesn't have a family, but it's hard for me to feel sorry for her with the things she did. Other than Lucas, the Baker family was a very very sweet family. Very 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 nice, and she turns them into fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre shit. So and even beyond that, even after all the stuff in RE7, she still's got to taunt Ethan. When he's on the brink of death, she's still got to try to kill fucking Rose. Like 20 fucking years later. So it's like I can't feel too sorry for her. Zoe's going B tier. I really liked Zoe's character in RE7 to the point where I was actually very disappointed because I saved Zoe when I played the game, and I was very disappointed that was the bad ending. I also really love the end of Zoe DLC. It's really fun. I think playing as Joe Baker and just giving the old 1-2 to the molded is really fun. I would definitely love to see Zoe come back at some point later down the road. I don't know how plausible that is, but yeah, you never know. Lady Dimitrescu. S tier. I would put her in D tier because she's got some double D. No, I'm sorry. Lady Dimitrescu, S tier. Just an iconic villain. Maggie Robertson does an incredible performance, and Capcom knew what they were doing with the marketing of Resident Evil Village. They knew that their player base was comprised of a lot of simps, and they took full advantage of that. And I cannot blame them. Nor can I blame the simps because, I mean, there's no denying it. Lady Dimitrescu is, yeah. Mother Miranda. I'm going to actually go with another S tier. That's another controversial one. I feel like I've got a lot of controversial picks on here. I think Mother Miranda was a really well done villain. And it's a shame that she was killed off and that she's, as early as she was. I really liked, her connection with the rest of the series. I will say it makes Spencer feel a little bit, Spencer's not on this list either. Wait. Yeah. Who made this list? Who made this list? I gotta figure out who made this list, because how is Spencer not on here? How is Alexia Ashford not on here? I digress. Mother Miranda. I feel like, her connection with Spencer does make Spencer a little less, just very slightly so makes Spencer less alluring, because it kind of takes away from some of his accomplishments, but not a lot of them, because he still did most of, most of the stuff that he did was still on his own. But I do think that connection makes Mother Miranda a much more impactful character, because it shows how all of the evil and whatnot, all of the stuff that happened in this series can be traced back to a grieving mother. And I don't know, I find that really interesting. I think that Mother Miranda was a well-done villain. I also think that the Shadows of Rose DLC, Mother Miranda was also very threatening in that. Her boss fight, I think, is also great. All the different forms she takes, and yeah. So Mother Miranda is, I think, a great villain, a very underrated villain. And now Heisenberg, A tier. S. No, I can't put him in A tier. Not when Dimitrescu and Miranda are in S tier. Heisenberg, another just completely delightful performance. The Nicolas Cage of the Resident Evil universe. Another very iconic line as well with the boulder punching asshole. And just like the lore implications of some remote French village knowing about Chris Redfield punching a boulder in a volcano with 4 witnesses. It might have been 2 I don't know. I guess no. I guess Jill and Josh weren't there quite yet. Josh isn't on here either. Jeez. I can understand Josh not being on here. He's more of a minor character, but you get some respect from my boy Josh. Like one of the only helicopter pilots to survive a Resident Evil game. Anyway, yeah. So Heisenberg, I think his factory can kind of be a drag at times, like replaying the game, but never to the point where I don't enjoy it. His boss fight, I think, is one of the harder ones on like the Shadows of or the Village of Shadows difficulty, specifically because you can't use any of your bonus weapons in it. So I think it makes it a lot harder. But yeah. Okay. The Dimitrescu, her daughters. I don't know which is which. I know, all their names: Cassandra, Bella, Daniela. I don't know which is which though. But that doesn't really matter because they're all just gonna go into the B tier. They're not different enough for me to really put them anywhere else. They're very delightfully crazy. I feel like they've kind of got like the same allure to them as like a character like Harley Quinn does, where they're just so batshit crazy, and the whole internet's like, no, I can fix her, and it's like, no, you can't, but you're welcome to try. I like that their boss fights all feel different, like at their core, it's all open up a window so that they get cold and you shoot them. But I like how each one it's slightly different how you do that. Especially the one where it's like a sky. I can't remember whose boss fight this is because, as I said, I can't really tell them apart. But the one where it's like a skylight and you can open that up. So yeah, I think they're fine. Donna Beneviento. I don't think that she deserves an S rank, so I'm gonna put her an A. But she does have one of the single greatest moments in Village, which is that terrifying fucking fetus monster. That thing is fucking boy. Oh god, that thing almost made me regret getting a PSVR 2 because seeing that in VR is etched into my memory now, and she's the reason for that moment. So she's got to have an A. Morel's not on here either. Gosh, so many missing characters. I'm gonna have to do another one at these at some point just to rank some of the characters that aren't on here. The Duke, I'm gonna go A tier. It's also making me realize the Merchant isn't on here. How can you have the Duke and not the Merchant from RE4? The Duke is, he's a bro. Really, he's a bro to Ethan. He's always there with some good old advice, some pointers on where to go next. He's selling him stuff, fixing up his weapons, making him dinner. The Duke's a bro. Rose, I'm gonna B tier. She hasn't done enough yet to warrant anything higher, since she's only really had she hasn't even had a main game appearance. She's just like a DLC character. So, Shadows of Rose was I think still really good, but I was still waiting to see more of Village being expanded on. We still have a whole lot of cliffhangers from from that and so many other Resident Evil games. Grace's S. She, her performance in Requiem was phenomenal. The raw terror, and I know this isn't anything new being said here, but like the raw terror in her voice and the performance, perfect, absolutely perfect. Um, and I think, you know, I I'm really excited to see where her character goes to next if she does appear again. I think she's got a lot of potential for the future of the series to to be a huge part in it going forward. And I really hope that they kind of like let her train up so that she's maybe a little bit more proficient with weapons in the future, so that she could I don't know, maybe like at some point be a successor to like Leon or something. And you know because as much as I hate to say it, they're getting old now. They don't have long, except for Jill. She's going to be around for a while, because of her de-aging stuff. Oh, and you know what? God, if they've retconned that with Elpis, because I mean, she was in Raccoon City, so obviously she's gonna need Elpis. If that gets rid of like the de-aging stuff, I'm gonna be pissed. It's like, because how can you set that up and not just let Jill, be like the future of Resident Evil? I don't know. Moving on, Gideon. I'm gonna go. This might be recency bias. I'm gonna go S tier again because like he's a very different villain for the Resident Evil games, where a lot of the villains in the Resident Evil games are either just completely non-verbal stalker brutes, or they're very like exaggerated, or whatnot. Like you've got your stars, you got your non-verbal punchy dudes. Then you've got your over-the-top villains down here. Your and then you've got like a very soft-spoken, methodical, but still lashes out at times. And I don't know, it feels very different. Like I feel like that's definitely as well very similar to like Wesker, but he's very different in Wesker in so many other ways that it's different. Also, the first time we've seen any other character that's got like the Nemesis juice behind them, so that's pretty very very unexpected, is what that was. Emily, I got no fucking clue where to put her. Like, I guess like Requiem did a good job making you care about her, to the point where I was so fucking pissed when she became a monster, and I actively as Leon, I did not shoot her the first time because I was like, I was like, no, because I'd heard that there was a good and a bad ending. I'm like, this has got to be what dictates that, right? Mainly that's because of Revelations. Because Revelations 2, if you saw my tier list for the Resident Evil games, that game, the way you get the good and bad ending is so fucking inobvious. It pissed me off. And so I was thinking of that, and I knew there was a good and a bad ending for Requiem. I didn't know what either of them were or how to get them. But, Emily turns into a monster. I'm like, no, I can't fucking shoot her. So I didn't shoot her. And then the cutscene happens, and Leon still shoots her dead. I'm like, no! I was pissed. I'm very happy that she, still ended up getting a good ending, as unlikely as it seemed at the moment. But the game did a good job of making me care about like what happened to her. So yeah, Alyssa. Now this is tough because I have not played the Outbreak games. Um, and obviously Alyssa is prominently from the Outbreak games. So everything I know about Alyssa comes from an article she wrote in Resident Evil 7 and then her cutscenes in Resident Evil 9. So I she's a great mom. From the cutscenes that we saw, she I can't really justify putting her really high up because I don't know anything about her, so I'm just gonna put her at a B. Um, Xeno as well is going in a B. I loved Xeno. I think Xeno was really like you could definitely feel that. Yeah, this is a clone of Wesker. He's got the same. He's got obviously looks pretty much fucking identical to RE4 remakes Wesker, except for like the his scars and hair. Um, his power set, like when Leon started shooting at him at the RPD and he started doing like the dodge things, I was terrified. I'm like, I'm gonna have to fight this fucker, aren't I? And therein lies the problem with Xeno, is that you don't, and that was so disappointing for me that we didn't get to fight Xeno. Um, and like even if it was like in the bad ending of the game, you fight Xeno. And yeah, I get it. Leon is in no condition to fight, but it's so bizarre to me that a villain this integral to the game it is so just like underutilized. And you know, I saw somebody posting that like if you skip all the cutscenes of the game, you won't even know who Xeno is. Which like, why would you skip all the cutscenes in the game your first time play? Like I can get skipping the cutscenes on replays. I do that when I'm like replaying the Resident Evil games to get challenges. But why are you skipping the cutscenes the first time you play the game, huh? Who does that? Animal. An animal. That's who does that. But I still see how like, yeah, that is, very weird that one of the two main villains of the game, and you don't get to fight him once. I was really kind of hoping that for the free minigame DLC that they would include some sort of boss with Xeno. And obviously, Leon Must Die Forever is released now, and we don't have that. I'm hoping that maybe it's still possible. Like I feel like they could definitely update Leon Must Die Forever, add more stuff, like they did that with Mercenaries in Resident Evil Village, and they gave us like the Mercenaries additional orders. So I wonder if they'll do something like that with Leon Must Die Forever. Who knows? Moving on, we got Hunk, S tier, obviously. Hunk is he's iconic. He's been in the series since the second game, so he's had some longevity as well. I do think another thing I'd love to see with Requiem is a DLC as Hunk. I know there's still a lot of people debating if if Commander's Hunk. Yeah. I don't see there being a universe where they're not the same person, especially considering they're voiced by the same voice actor. I mean, like the person that voices the commander in RE9 voices Hunk in various games. I don't know which ones exactly. I don't think he voices Hunk in all of them, but he's voiced him before. So, and obviously Resident Evil has utilized voice actors for different roles. Obviously, Carlos, Chris, hell, Nicole Tompkins played one of these three. I can't remember. I think it might have been. I don't know. I can't tell them apart. I'm sorry. Yeah. So, Hunk S tier, Jake S tier. Jake was a phenomenal character. And it sucks that RE6 flopped as much as it did because it means that we're probably not going to see him again, at least for a while. I think, as I said when during the Sherry portion, Jake's story is a very interesting one. Kind of having to deal with being the son of a person that has done so many terrible things, and for Jake, I think it's a little more interesting because he at the start of the game doesn't know who his dad is, which then makes it when he finds out that his dad was Albert Wesker. He's a supervillain and whatnot. Um, and then that kind of makes Jake reflect on his own life, where like Jake's not the best person either. He has done some bad things as well, and that makes him like start thinking that his evilness is like genetic, and so it drives that change in him to be a better person and whatnot. And I think there's a lot of potential to bring Jake back at some point. I know this is a thing that a lot of people were upset about with that campaign. I really like the melee attacks with Jake. I think it's really fun. I know it's not like the most Resident Evil thing, but um, you know, I, I can enjoy it when games kind of branch out and try new things. I know that for RE6 they branched out and tried way too many new things, but the melee thing is something that I enjoy. That's another reason like why I like End of Zoe. The pow 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 pow. So yeah. Anyway, that's everyone. My throat is getting sore from how much I've been talking. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I didn't offend you too much when I started bullying Ashley haters or anything of the sort. With all that being said, bye bye.